I want to sleep with the dead bodies. They are sweeter. A story written by Christy Midnight Tales. Dr. Christian owned St. Sky Hospital, but owning it and running it were two completely different things. The hospital had potential, rooms that could have been filled with patients, machines that could save lives, but it was barely functioning. Broken equipment sat in corners, leaking taps dripped onto the floor, and nurses were overworked, sometimes skipping meals to attend to patients. The corridors were dimly lit, the faint smell of antiseptic mixed with dust making the place feel more like a warehouse than a hospital. Christian moved through it all with a sense of duty. Clipboard in hand, checking charts, patching up problems wherever he could. Funds were always short, suppliers grumbled. Staff complained. Patients grew impatient. Every month felt like a battle just to keep the hospital open. Nights were the worst, when he walked the empty corridors, the lights humming above him, and thought about unpaid salaries, broken machines, and the patients who had no choice but to leave. Then one afternoon, everything began to change. A man walked into his office. Christian had been buried in files, half lost in paperwork, when the man appeared. Clean-shaven, perfectly pressed suit, shoes polished, carrying himself like someone who had never worried about money in his life. He spoke politely, complimented Christian on his work, asked questions about the hospital's daily operations. Nothing seemed unusual. Christian assumed he was a donor, a politician, someone important checking in. He smiled, shook the man's hand, and kept walking. A week later, Christian arrived at his office to find a neatly folded envelope sitting on his desk. Inside was a large sum of money, far more than he had ever seen in a single envelope. Enough to repair broken beds, pay overdue staff wages, or hire additional nurses. Christian was cautious. He had never accepted donations like this before. But the money was legitimate. Soon, Fridays became a ritual. The man didn't always come himself. Usually, it was one of his assistants, polite and neatly dressed, dropping off brown envelopes with a brief "good afternoon, doctor," and then leaving without another word. Christian would take the envelope, count the bills, and immediately begin planning how to spend it on the hospital. Each Friday brought a sense of relief, almost like a pressure lifting from his shoulders. The hospital began to transform. A broken water system was fixed. Old beds were replaced with new ones. The small lab Christian had dreamed about for years became functional. Nurses could breathe again. Patients returned. Word spread that St. Sky was finally functioning properly. Christian walked the halls, noticing small differences, the hum of machines, cleaner floors, brighter lights, the sense that things were under control. Staff whispered praise behind his back. Every Friday, the envelope arrived like clockwork. Occasionally, it came with small gifts, a box of chocolates, a fruit basket, or a short note thanking him for caring for the city's health. With the influx of cash, Christian began making bigger changes. He hired 2 new nurses, paid bonuses to long-term staff, replaced curtains in patient wards, repainted walls, and bought new mattresses. Patients stayed longer. Nurses had time to breathe. Even the night shift seemed lighter. Slowly, St. Sky Hospital regained its reputation. Christian felt a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years, but he still didn't question the source. The man had framed it all as generosity. The money felt like a miracle, and Christian didn't want to ruin the feeling by asking questions. Then came one Friday that shifted everything subtly. Christian walked into his office and saw the usual envelope sitting on his desk. He picked it up, expecting the familiar stack of bills. But this time, there was something different. On top of the money lay a single folded sheet of paper. The handwriting was neat, precise, unfamiliar. The letter said, "Dr. Christian, I've done a lot for you and your hospital. Now it's time for you to do something for me. Give me private access to your morgue at night. I want to sleep with the dead bodies. If you're not okay with that, then return all the money I've been giving you. You have 3 days to decide." That was it. No greetings. No threats written in bold. Just a calm, simple demand that made his blood run cold. His fingers shook as he folded the paper back into its envelope. The words kept ringing in his head like a bell. He knew exactly what it meant. He wasn't asking for paperwork or to help with medical research. The man wanted the morgue for himself, to be alone with the bodies. Christian felt sick. For hours that day, he sat in his office staring at nothing, his mind spinning. He had no way to return the money. It had already been poured into renovating St. Sky Hospital, buying equipment, paying staff, clearing old debts. Night after night, Christian paced his office like a restless ghost. He thought about writing a reply, but every time he picked up a pen, his hand froze. He couldn't say yes. He couldn't say no either. On the fourth day, just as the sun was rising, a sleek black car pulled up at the hospital entrance. Christian's heart dropped. He didn't need to see the license plate to know who it was. The man stepped out, wearing a dark suit that looked untouched by dust or sweat. He walked calmly through the hospital corridors, like he owned the place. People moved out of his way without even knowing why. There was something about him that commanded space. Christian stood when the man entered his office, but his knees felt weak. "Dr. Christian," the man said in a calm, almost friendly tone. "You didn't respond." Christian swallowed hard. I didn't know what to say." "That's all right," the man said smoothly as he sat down, crossing his legs. "I'm not here to make trouble. I'm here to remind you of something important. I've been very generous to you and this hospital. But I need you to understand something. I can use the same power that lifted you up to shut this place down." Christian's breath caught. "Shut us down?" The man nodded, his face calm but his eyes sharp. "One phone call. That's all it would take. Inspectors will come, licenses will be revoked, patients will be moved out. St. Sky will be nothing but an empty building. Do you understand me?" Christian's stomach twisted. He looked around his office, at the polished furniture, the new medical machines outside, the walls freshly painted just months ago. All of it was paid for with this man's money. I don't think I can." "Yes, you can," the man interrupted, leaning forward. "You're a smart man, doctor. All I'm asking is for you to leave your morgue unlocked at night. No questions, no interference. That's all. You get to keep your hospital, your staff, your patients. Everybody wins." His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that pinned Christian in place. The man didn't look angry. He didn't need to. He was in complete control, and Christian knew it. "Please," Christian whispered, his voice breaking. "This isn't right." The man chuckled softly, a cold sound that made Christian's skin crawl. "Right or wrong doesn't matter here, doctor. Survival does. Think carefully." Finally, Christian nodded. The man smiled, a thin, satisfied smile. "Good. You've made the right choice. My men will handle everything." Christian's hands shook as he reached for the keys to the morgue. He slid them across the desk, unable to look the man in the eyes. The man took them calmly, his fingers brushing the keys like he was accepting a gift. But that was the moment Dr. Christian made the biggest mistake of his life.